أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. So last class we have finished the gender and transitivity of a verb. So today we will be seeing the voices of a verb. So verbs are of two types, that is the active voice and the passive voice. So verbs are of two types, the active and the passive verbs. So these are active voice and the passive voice. Active verbs, here the subject or the doer of the action is known. The subject, that is the doer of the action, is known. So by default all the verbs are in the active state. That is, all the verbs will be in the active state. That means the doer of the action is known. So these active verbs are known as Failul Ma'lum. Active verbs is known as Failul Ma'lum. It is also known as Failul Ma'ruf also. So active verbs is known as Failul Ma'lum. For example, the thief stole the bike. So here who is the subject doing the action of stealing? The thief. So thief is the subject who is doing the action of stealing the object, that is the bike. So here the subject is known in the sentence. So such verbs in which the subject is known, those verbs are known as active verbs, that is known as Failul Ma'lum. Coming to passive verbs, here the doer of the action is not known. In passive verbs, the doer of the action is not known. So the subject is the recipient of the verb action. The subject here is the recipient of the verb action. The object of the active verb becomes the subject of the passive verbs. The object in the active verb was the, for example, the thief stole the bike. So the object was the bike. Now here in the passive verb, the object of the active verb becomes the subject of the passive verb. So here the subject becomes the object. So the object in the first verb, first example was the bike. So here the bike will become the subject and the doer of the action, that is the thief, is not known here. So such verbs are known as passive verbs, where the doer of the action is not known and the object in the active verb becomes the subject in the passive verb. The passive verbs are known as Failul Majhul. The passive verbs are known as Failul Majhul. For example, the bike was stolen. In the early example, in the active verbs, the thief stole the bike. The thief was the subject and the bike was the object. So in Failul Majhul, the bike will become the subject and the bike was stolen, and the doer of the action who has stolen the bike is not been mentioned. So in Failul Majhul, the subject is not been mentioned. For example, the boy hit. Okay, the boy hit. So it is an active voice because the doer of the action is known here. The boy hit, it is the active voice. The boy was hit, it is a passive voice. Here the boy takes the hitting, but who hit the boy is not known. So such verbs are known as passive verbs. Then how to make a active verb into a passive verb or an active voice into a passive voice? So making the passive voices. So first we have got three types of verbs, that is Failul Madi, Failul Mudari and Failul Amr. So how to make a passive active verb into a passive verb? That is first coming to Failul Madi. So how to make a Failul Madi verb into a Failul Madi Majhul? Okay. So for example, this is the Al Madi is nothing but the Failul Madi is nothing but past tense verb. So past tense verb, Majhul form of the past tense verb is leave the last letter. Second last letter, that is the Ain Kalima, will receive a Kasra, and the letter before the second last letter, that is the Fa Kalima, will receive a Dhamma. So how to make an active verb into a passive verb? So here you can see Failul Madi, that is the active verb, and this is the passive verbs. So here in active verbs, that is Ba'asa. Ba'asa means he raised. So it is a Failul Madi, that is the past tense verb which is in the active form. So in its passive form it becomes Bu'isa, that is he, Ba'asa, he raised, Bu'isa, he was raised. Okay. So Ba'asa means he raised, Bu'isa means he was raised. So here the difference you can see in Ba'asa and Bu'isa, the Ain Kalima here is the Sa. So Sa is left as it is. Now the Ain Kalima here the lam kalima is the sa here, so the lam kalima is left as it is. The second letter is the ain kalima. The ain kalima has a fatha in the active form. In the passive form, it receives a kasra. And the ba, that is the fa kalima, it has a fatha in the active form. In the passive form, it receives a dhamma. So ba'asa becomes bu'isa. So ba'asa means he raised, bu'isa means he was raised. Now here you can see razakha. Razakha means he provided. Razakha, he provided. It is a passive voice. That is, it is the past tense. Now how to make this past tense into a passive past tense? That is ruzikha. Ruzikha, the khaf, that is the lam kalima is left as it is. The ain kalima, that is the ra, will receive a kasra, and the fa kalima will receive a dhamma. That is razakha, he provided. Ruzikha, he was provided. Similarly, ja'ala, he made. Ju'ila, he was made. So lam kalima is left as it is. The ain kalima will receive a kasra. The fa kalima will receive a dhamma. So it is in this way the past tense verb, that is the fe'lul madhi, is made into fe'lul majhul. Now coming to fe'lul mudari majhul. That how to make a fe'lul mudari verb into a majhul form. So leaving the last letter as it is and giving the first letter a dhamma and giving the second last letter a fatha. Okay. Here in the past tense verb we have seen the second last letter should receive a kasra and the first letter is receiving a dhamma in fe'lul mudari. So how to make a fe'lul mudari into fe'lul mudari majhul? So if you take here yab'asu, ba'asa, yabasu. Ba'asa was the past tense form. Yab'asu is the present tense. That is, yabasu is the fe'lul mudari form. That is yab'asu. He raises. Okay. Yub'asu, he is being raised or he will be raised. Okay. Ba'asa, ba'asa, yab'asu. Yab'asu means he raises. That is the fe'lul mudari in its active form. In its passive form, it is yub'asu. Yub'asu means he is being raised. He is being raised. So here the difference between these two verbs you can see. The last lam letter, lam kalima is there. It is left as it is. And the ain kalima has a fatha. It remains as a fatha. The first letter, that is the sign of the mudari, that is a ya, will receive a dhamma. So the sign of mudari, that is a ya, will receive a dhamma in its passive form. Now razakha was a past tense. Yarzuhu is the fe'lul mudari form. That is yarzuhu. Yarzuhu means he provides. Okay. Yarzuhu means he provides. Now yurzahu means he is being provided. He is being provided. Now yarzahu, if we take the khaf, that is the lam kalima, remains as it is. The za, that is the ain kalima, will receive a fatha, and the ya, sign of fe'lul mudari, will receive a dhamma. So it is the way in order to make fe'lul mudari majhul. Now similarly you can see yakhluqu. Yakhluqu means he created or he made. He makes or he creates. Yakhluqu. Now yukhlaqu. In yukhlaqu means he is being made or he is being created. So it is the passive form. How to make this fe'lul mudari into its passive form? That is the khaf, that is the lam kalima, is left as it is. The lam, which is the ain kalima, is having a dhamma here in active form. In its passive form, it will receive a fatha, and the fe'lul mudari, sign of fe'lul mudari, that is the ya, will receive a dhamma. Okay. So it is the way in order to make fe'lul mudari majhul. The passive voice has two elements here. That is the auxiliary verb and the main verb. The auxiliary verbs, it shows the tense. That is was, is being, will be. So these are all the auxiliary verbs. By these auxiliary verbs, we can it shows the tense. In which tense it is. It is in the past tense, in the future tense, or in the present tense. And here the main verb, it stays the same all the time. Okay, it stays the same all the time. For example, if we say nasara, nasara means he helped. It is the active form. It is the past tense. Nasara, that is the fe'lul madhi. Now fe'lul madhi, in order to make fe'lul madhi majhul, that is you leave the lam kalima as it is, ra. The ain kalima is receive a kasra, and the fa kalima will receive a dhamma. So nasara means he helped, nusira means he was helped, which is the passive form, nusira. Now same. So here you can see nasara yansuru. Yansuru is fe'lul mudari, that is the past tense. It includes the present tense as well as the future tense. So nasara yansuru. Yansuru means he helps. Yansuru means he helps. It is the active voice. Yansuru means he helps. It is the active voice. So in order to make this fe'lul mudari majhul, that is leaving the lam kalima as it is, and the ain kalima, that is the swat, will receive a fatha. The dhamma is changed into a fatha, and the ya, that is the sign of fe'lul mudari, will receive a dhamma. So he is helped, he is being helped, or he will be helped. So this yunsaru can be translated as he is helped, he is being helped, or he will be helped. So it is a passive voice. So as we know, fe'lul madi maruf or fe'lul madi maruf or fe'lul madi ma'lum, it comes in three patterns, that is fa'ala pattern, fa'ila pattern, or fa'ula pattern in its active form. In its passive form, how to only one pattern is seen, that is the lam kalima is left as it is, the ain kalima will receive a kasra, and the fa kalima will receive a dhamma in madi majhul form, as said earlier. So here you can see fe'lul madi majhul, that is the lam kalima is left as it is, the ain kalima will receive a kasra, and the fa kalima will receive a dhamma. So let us see some examples here. Daraba hamidun khalidan. Daraba means he hit. So who hit? Khalid. Hamid hit Khalid. Okay, Hamid hit Khalid. So this we will understand in framing of a sentence, that we will understand in sentences. But as of now, daraba is the fe'lul madi, it is the active form. In order to make this active form into a passive form, that is the ba is left as it is, ra, that is the ain kalima will receive a kasra, and the dad, that is it will receive a dhamma, that is it will receive a dhamma because it is a fe'lul madi. So duriba khalidun. Duriba khalidun means Khalid was hit. Okay, Khalid was hit. Here daraba hamidun khalidan. So here you can see Hamid is the doer of the action. So hitting is the action. Hamid hit Khalid. So Hamid is the doer of the action. So here duriba khalidun. So Khalid here is the receiver of the action. In the passive form, Hamid is not been mentioned. So here in the passive form, the doer of the action is not known, whereas in the active form, the doer of the action is being mentioned. Similarly, you can see nasara means he helped. Nasara Zaidun Hamidan. So Zaid helped Hamid. So in order to make this active verb into a passive verb, nasara, that is ra is left as it is, the ain kalima will receive a kasra, the fa kalima will receive a dhamma. So nusira Hamidun means Hamid was helped. Who helped Hamid is not been mentioned here, but here you can see nasara Zaidun Hamidan means Zaid helped Hamid. So here the doer of the action is being known. Here in nusira Hamidun, the doer of the action is not being known. It is the passive form. Similarly, akala Khalidun ta'ama. Akala Khalidun ta'ama means here Khalid ate the food. Khalid ate the food. Now here, in order to make this akala into ukila, that is the passive form, that is the lam is left as it is, the ka will receive a kasra, and alif will receive a dhamma. So it is ukila ta'ama. So he ate the food. Who ate the food is not been mentioned here because it is the passive form. Similarly, you can see here fataha hamidun kitaban. So here Hamid opened the book. Hamid opened the book. So fataha is changed into futiha, means ha is left as it is, ta will receive a kasra, and fa will receive a, fe will receive a dhamma. So futiha kitabun. So here futiha means it was opened. So futiha kitabun, it was opened. So the book was opened. Who opened the book was not being mentioned, but here the doer of the action is not known in the passive form. Similarly, you have fe'lul mudari ma'ruf, that is the active form, and fe'lul mudari majhul, that is the passive form. Similarly here yaf'alu, yaf'ilu, yaf'ulu is the three patterns of the active form. In the passive form, only one pattern, that is the lam kalima is left as it is, the ain kalima will receive a fatha and the sign of fi'lul mudari will receive a dhamma here. So here you can see some examples. That is, fatha means he opened, futiha means he opened or he was opened or it was opened. So it is a fi'lul madhi majhul form. Fi'lul nasara, nusira. Okay, nasara means he helped, nusira means he was helped, daraba means he hit, duriba means he was hit, samiya means he heard, sumiya means he was heard or it was heard. So here you can see fi'lul mudari majhul form. So yaftahu means he opens or he will open or he is opening. There is a two forms you can see here in fi'lul fi'lul mudari. But here, in order to make this fi'lul mudari majhul, so that is yaftahu becomes yuftahu. Yuftahu means he was opened or it was opened. Yansuru means he helps. Yunsaru means he was helped or it was helped. Now yadribu means he hits or yudrabu means he was hit or it was hit. Yasma'u means he hears. Yusma'u means he was heard or it was heard. So here is a simple rule that in order to make a active voice into a passive voice, the active voice should have an object. So active voice, those verbs which have an object. Such verbs can only be made into passive verbs. So those verbs which do not have an object can't be made into a passive verb. So here you can see khalaqallahul insana min teen. That is, Allah created the man from the clay. Allah created the man, that is the insan, that is a human, from the clay. So here you can see the khalaqa is the active form. So in order to make it passive form, it is khuliqal. Khuliqal insanu min teen. Here insana was the object that we learn in the sentence. Here insan, as of now you can see insan is the object here. So this insan, the object will become the subject in the passive form. Now the doer of the action here is Allah, that is Lafzul Jalala is the doer of the action. But here in the passive form, the doer of the action is not been mentioned. So khuliqal insanu min teen, the man was created from clay. Okay, the man or the human is created from the clay. So it is the passive form. So a rule is that a passive form, in order to make a verb into a passive form, the active form of the verb should have an object. The verb with an object can only be changed into its passive form, because in the passive form the object will become the subject. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.